Well, Shepard, I'm sorry to say there's a bit of a missed opportunity. I should have prepared Singing in the Rain for this graphic. Welcome back to the show, Shepard. How are you?
Oh, I'm as good as I can be, Jason. Boy, I tell you, every day I wake up and I jump online and I try to see what's going on right away. The saga just keeps getting deeper and deeper, and all of this is progressing on every front. I mean, we're seeing the literal transformation of not only America, but the world right before our eyes, it seems like all of a sudden.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the type of thing that you've been talking about for a long time. Info wars, all the people that the mainstream would call conspiracy theorists. And frankly, Shepard, even just a couple of months ago when you came on to this show and you were telling us about near Earth objects, Planet X, people thought it was ridiculous. But I've said it many times, I'm particularly fascinated by these stories that when you first hear them sound ridiculous, but as you delve into the facts, the evidence, and the details, what you were telling us is stuff that NASA and famous astronomers have been researching and reporting on for years, decades even.
Yeah, that's right, Jason. And I've continued my investigation since, and it's really just been an investigation onto these lockdowns, COVID, and all this continuity of government and near Earth object talk that I see in their paperwork, the United States government paperwork at a White House level, at different levels. And it's actually blowing my mind because I'm finding out more and more. And every time I go into another level of this or get into another level and uncover something else, or someone sends new information and I look into it, it, I mean, this is vast, Jason, and it's really strange because so many data points are adding up and matching up that it's almost undeniable at this point. Um, the first thing I wanted to talk about on your show, with your great listeners, is NASA and FEMA. They're preparing for this September 20th asteroid impact in California off the coast, documents reveal, but it's in the manner of a fictional scenario. So, the National Aeronautics Space Administration and FEMA in 2017 devised and initiated a supposed fictitious scenario. And in this scenario, the two agencies would actually drill down on an asteroid scenario that's set to impact with the Earth just off the coast of California on September
Whoa.
20th of
Whoa.
2020.
I mean,
Hmm.
that's amazing. So
It
this is
is.
on
Yeah.
IntelliHub.com. People can go there and read the full story. But I mean, you're basically giving us the breakdown here that NASA is saying. So I mean, it's a
So,
drill, but
right.
what's the
Now,
probability of this actually happening?
well, it's crazy. So they're calling this an exercise, and it's really just a drill, supposedly. But this all started 4 years ago. And NASA claims, and this is in their words, the simulation was designed to strengthen the collaboration between the two agencies, which have administration direction to lead the U.S. response. And then, but this thing, considering drills have went live in the past, I'm sure
Right.
your listeners know the London 7/7 bombing on July 7th of 2007, also the September 11th attacks, the NORAD drills. Oftentimes they use these drills, and even in active shooter drills, as covers to carry out real events. And I'm sure you've covered this on Crowdsource the Truth and everything, so people can understand where I'm coming from when I see a scenario that was developed in 2017, and it says, this is NASA, and it says, it's not a matter of if, but when will we deal with such a situation? This is from an associate administrator for NASA's science mission directive. And He says but unlike any other time in history, we now have the ability to respond to an impact threat through continued observations, predictions, response, planning, and mitigation. And remember, when I came on your show before, we talked about, and we might get into it on this a little bit, but there's an asteroid mitigation plan at a White House
Right.
level that came out in 2018, and our White House and the Pentagon thought it was so important that they were going to have to tell other countries about this and form international working groups to mitigate asteroids. And then that's when they got the NASA Project DART involved. But the DART public version and what they already have going are two different things. And then the John Hopkins University does the NASA Project DART. But see, they're also controlling the COVID map. And then it's real hard to explain. It's all on intellihub.com. There's a search box on there, and you can search some of these words that we're talking about. But Fauci and Bill Gates have a racketeering scheme, and they're part of this board, and it's on a world scale level. I'm talking top down world scale level. It's basically the board that controls the COVID rollout. And it's this giant racketeering scheme. Fauci's on the board. We talked about it on your show. People can also
What
check
is the
out.
name of that thing? We've got to be real careful about what we say here and definitely show evidence, because YouTube and other social media platforms have really kind of made these new restrictions where they've got such broad language covering what they don't want us talking about that they can kind of strike out at virtually anything. And you know, Shepard, people know that if they're watching us right now, they're watching on Crowdsource the Truth 2. We went live at 2 p.m. Eastern, and the Jason Goodman YouTube channel has lost its ability to live stream because the CEO and president of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, in his personal capacity, has issued a copyright strike that I've challenged, and his lawyers are refusing to communicate with me, I believe, because the intention is not to protect their copyright. What I've done is parody. I think they just want to shut the channel down because they don't want this type of information getting out.
Absolutely. I would agree with your analysis, Jason. You know, you're one of the only outlets getting real information out. Your guests, IntelliHub. You know, there's only a handful of people doing this anymore to any real capacity. And it's getting actually alarming. But this board that I'm talking about, Jason, is called the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board, the GPMB, and it's basically appears to be involved in a mammoth worldwide racketeering scheme. It's comprised of experts from like, for instance, non-governmental organizations, academic institutions, national governments, multilateral agencies, the World Health Organization, the World Bank, even. And
Wow.
the board's main purpose within itself, in their own words, is they want to urge political action with, quote, multilateral agencies.
They got
And
Gro Harlem Brundtland, the former prime minister of Norway. She's deeply involved with the Clinton Foundation. So I think that your claims have credibility. Charles Ortel has presented tons of evidence that Gro Harlem Brundtland utilized money from the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund to send millions and millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation. And there he is. There's Dr. Anthony Fauci on the board.
that's right, and that Dr. Gao right there.
Yeah. Event 201.
Yes, it's all connected. Now, in this, in this white paper, actually titled "A World at Risk," and this is the annual report on global preparedness for health emergencies from the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board, sponsored by the World Bank and World Health Organization and other globalist entities, basically. It's somehow connected to an impending natural disaster. Now, I found verbiage in this report that literally talks about natural disasters, and it's relating COVID to this. And it says future reports will monitor progress on preparedness for other types of health emergencies, such as those caused by natural disasters. And then, when I read something like that, Jason, I have to think of the show that you, John Collin, and I did when we talked about the field hospitals and how they
Yeah.
rolled out trauma surgeons. And then we found out John presented the flight paths of all these asteroids intersecting on these days that I said something was going to happen. And this all came down to it. And it was all real mind blowing. But the space agencies, there's really what's called like planetary defense groups. Each country basically has that if they're a major country. And they go into alert mode, and which they're going to be in it, but that's what I want to talk about. We're in it basically right now coming up. So NASA had this drill that in 2017 they said, look, we got to take 4 years. We're gonna say we just discovered this object. We can't mitigate it by exploding it, because I went through this before on your show, but there's like 4 ways to mitigate an asteroid according to NASA, right? You can nuclear mitigation where you blow them apart, and then there's like nuclear deflection where you try to use a nuke to push them away kind of and not really blow them up. And then there is kinetic impaction, which that's a popular method. And then the next method is just brace for impact. And so this was a brace for impact scenario because they knew that they could not mitigate this object that's in this fictional scenario. But I really have to wonder if it's fictional, because if you're going to prep the population for a disaster, Jason, like say for instance 4 years out, 5 years out, you notice that this asteroid's going to hit and they basically know around where it's going to hit. How are they going to mobilize all the departments in the government? How are they going to get their people on the street? How are they going to get ventilator stockpiles? How are they going to get masks on every street corner? How are they going to get people to be ready to shelter in place at their homes? How are they going to have military around to deal with things? All of this seems like it dovetails with this COVID that's being used as a cover, I believe, as a blanket op. But this is just a fictional scenario. No one's saying this is going to happen right now, but we have to take in consideration that a lot of times these drills go live. Now, this exercise, so it was designed to create a forum for planetary science community to show how it would collect, analyze, and share data about a hypothetical asteroid predicted to impact Earth. Emergency managers discussed how the data would be used to consider some of the unique challenges an asteroid impact would present for preparedness, response, and public warning, according to NASA. Now, representatives from NASA, FEMA, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the Department of Energy, National Laboratories, the U.S. Air Force, and the California's Governor Office of Emergency Services. So look, they actually did do this with the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, okay? And it says they attended a meeting and will be participating throughout for the 4-year-long exercise that comes to a head on September 20th, 2020, which is coming up here next month, right? And so it's critical to exercise these kind of low probability but high consequence disaster scenarios. FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate said, by working through our emergency response plans now, we will be better prepared if and when we need to respond to such an event. Oh, really? And then it says, this is in the article I did, it says, the exercise simulates a possible impact 4 years from now in which, according to NASA, NASA says, a fictitious asteroid imagined to have been discovered this fall with a 2% probability of impact with Earth on September 2020. Now, this is back in 2017. They said it had a 2% probability, right? And then the simulated asteroid was initially estimated to be between 300 and 800 feet in size, with a possibility of making impact anywhere along a swath of Earth, including a narrow band area that crossed the entire United States. Now,
Whoa.
this is from NASA's JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. In the fictitious scenario, observers continued to track the asteroid for 3 months using ground-based telescope observations. And remember, all the observatories are closed down. They just said this other one that tracks near-Earth objects and aliens, they said had an accident, and now that thing's shut down. And I mean, it's just bizarre. But so they're saying this using ground-based telescope observations and probability of impact, it climbed up to 65%. Then
Whoa.
the next
That
observations
sounds high. Isn't it
yeah,
like
but
less than 1% likely that somebody would get coronavirus? And here they're saying it's 65% that's going to
now
hit.
listen to this. The next observations
Oh,
had to wait until 4 months later due to the asteroid's position relative to the sun. Once observations could resume in May of 2017, the impact probability jumped to 100%. By
hmm.
November of 2017, it was simulated that the predicted impact would occur somewhere in a narrow band across Southern California or just off the coast of the Pacific Ocean. This is NASA saying this
Well,
in
and
their.
Shepard, we've got a lot of comments coming in here that are kind of, there's a lot of people who don't trust NASA. It's a
Right.
fair question to ask. It's a
Okay.
government
So
agency.
they're
Just real quick,
conducting
one of the
on,
most
you
compelling
know,
things that I've seen in this argument about the moon landing being faked was that it would have been a remarkably strategic military move at that moment in the Cold War to cause the Russians, the Soviet Union, to believe that the United States had reached the moon. And in order to do that, they would have had to lie to everybody. So that's an interesting point to look at. People are doubting NASA. What do you say to that?
okay,
I
so
know you doubt the government.
let's war game it, and let's just say for the doubters, if we doubt NASA, because I mean I think like that too. We can't trust NASA. Okay, great. Okay, so they are running this scenario on this, and I know that they're running this drill and they're doing this preparedness scenario, and this is what they're worried about. Now, whether an asteroid strikes or not, I don't know. Whether they decide to blow up nuclear weapons and say it was an asteroid, I don't know.
Oh,
Whether nothing happens because it's just a drill, I don't know. But this is just fascinating. Now, to make matters worse, NASA has recently listed, now get this. Now, this is where it gets a little weird. To make matters worse, NASA has recently listed a real asteroid that's not part of the drill as making its close approach to Earth on September 20th. The object, dubbed 2017 SL16, just so happens to have been discovered in 2017, which correlates with the drill initiation date. And this raises a major red flag. Now, remember, there was also that observatory, I think it was in Arizona, that they got shut down and the FBI raided, and they said there was like porn there or something. But, we don't know what happened there. And did they really see something? I don't know. But that's
who's
just
working at what office are you ever breaking out the porn? That's crazy, but it seems to happen all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. But NASA's got this 2017 SL16 listed as coming in on September 20th. Now, it says it's going to pass, but I'll tell you what, it's their numbers are showing like a close graze, and so we don't even know. Let's just say we can't trust NASA. I don't know what's going on, but they're drilling on this now. To make the scenario even more dramatic, role players did not allow for deflection or mitigation of the Earthbound asteroid, and instead they opted to forcefully evacuate residents from the city of Los Angeles. Now listen
When
to
was
this.
that?
This comes from NASA.
Wait.
While
When did they evacuate people from Los Angeles?
this
I
is
didn't
in
hear
the
about that in the
nope,
drill.
this is in the fictitious scenario we're talking about. So the drill paperwork for NASA, that they're in a live exercise, that Mike Pompeo said we're in a live
Yes.
exercise. Well, NASA also, I got their paperwork, it's right here. They're in a live exercise, and it's a 4-year long exercise, and it lasts until the 20th of September, when supposedly a fake asteroid comes in and wipes out Los Angeles or just off the coast. But in the in the fictitious scenario that they invented, it says, while mounting a deflection mission to move the asteroid off its collision course had been simulated in previous tabletop exercises. This particular exercise was designed so that the time of impact was too short for a deflection mission to be feasible. To pose a great future challenge to emergency managers faced with a mass evacuation of the metropolitan Los Angeles area. So now, what's weird about this is FEMA. We talked about this a long time ago when I started coming on and I was talking about Planet X and all this stuff. But
Yeah.
so FEMA's real. Like, I know people don't want to believe this, but if you do deep research or you go through IntelliHub, you'll find this to be a fact. FEMA's running the show right now. They're in control. The president's virtually powerless. I don't even know if he has any power because of how FEMA was designed. This has never happened before. This had to all happen a very specific way. The president had to activate the Stafford Act. The governor, all 50 governors had to very specifically activate state emergencies until all states were in an emergency to where FEMA could then become operational under protocols, under continuity of government orders.
Yeah.
And that FEMA in total control, and whoever is in the power structure of FEMA, I don't know how that works, or if they have a total secret cell that comes alive at that point or whatever. Now, they also went in and they were messing with the chain of succession with Donald Trump, and they were making sure they knew who was in the chain of succession. They were locking these people down. Remember, we talked about this. They were bunkering down. So I think there's been various threats of asteroids, and we know that because John Colin proved it on your show. And then we see.
Well, he certainly showed the JPL data. I mean, it's what's the thing that people saying, oh, you trust NASA. I mean, look, here's the thing. NASA's the official space agency. If the president, if the government are going to make any kind of decision about something like this, they're going to look at that. So, as you said, we're wargaming this. We're looking at it from the standpoint of this is what NASA is saying. IntelliHub.com had a story about continuation of government, and now you got another story in which you have a video quoting Nancy Pelosi boasting about being third in line, and she said some weird stuff in that interview.
Yes. So here's let's just say people don't believe in NASA. Well, great. Then the secret government can just launch their whole plan and just tell the president that this is happening, and then they take over anyways. I mean, you see what I mean? So, somehow this has happened and it's real. They've gone into continuity of government and we're still in it. They're having regular meetings now. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is citing continuity of government plans. She made it clear during her appearance on MSNBC's Morning Joe last month that Donald Trump, quote, will be leaving the White House, quote, whether he likes it or not. And she says, whether he knows it or not, he will be leaving. And she said, just because he might not want to move out of the White House doesn't mean we won't have an inauguration ceremony to inaugurate a duly elected president of the United States. Now, remember, they have this new guy. They're rolling out of the Pentagon. They want him to be the commander of Northcom and Space Force. They have people that they've put into place. I saw where they gave Pompeo presidential powers, but then they scrubbed it from the internet. And it was like, it blew my mind because, I mean, I went in and I did everything short of taking screenshots. And the next day it all disappeared. The chain of succession, all this stuff. So Pelosi went on to add that she's second in line. First, Mike Pence, the vice president, is in line if were to happen to Trump, and then Pelosi would follow. Well, so Pelosi's statements were made after she attended last month's continuity of government meeting in which the Pentagon had revealed to top-down officials that the chain of succession to the presidency, that there is a chance for a potential disaster to strike before the elections, which could cripple the U.S. and other countries. They're in continuity of government meetings. They're talking about a disaster. The House Speaker went as far as to say, this is never going to happen. God willing, it never will, but there is a process. It has nothing to do with whether a certain occupant of the White House does not feel like moving and has to be fumigated out of there because presidency is the presidency. It's not a geography or location. Now, this, as an analyst, Jason, this is very specific terminology and verbiage. And she inadvertently, to me, it like lets the cat out of the bag. Now, a lot of people would say this doesn't prove anything, but the verbiage she's using here is this verbiage. It is like this. Someone above Nancy Pelosi and above all the government basically is saying Donald Trump is going to stay in the White
Right.
House. It's a fact. And they must have said, look, FEMA took control. This is how it is. We're going to suspend the election. Notice they're not really running up to the election right now. There's nothing going on. Does
Well,
it
they've
seem
got
like
those virtual DNC, virtual RNC. In addition to what she actually says, Shepard, I found Nancy Pelosi's body language really interesting. I mean, first of all, she looks like an alcoholic to me. She always looks like she needs a drink. She's quivering and shaking around and speaking nervously. I don't think this woman should be in charge of anything, let alone the House of Representatives. It's a bizarre interview. And of course, Mika Brzezinski is the daughter of Zbigniew Brzezinski, the author of the book about the coming technocracy. What was that thing called? Coming Age or something? What's the Brzezinski book? I'll look it up while you continue to tell us about Pelosi.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point you bring up about Mika because lately, okay, so I just consider straight up Mika a deep state shill, and she's part of the whole apparatus, right? She's like an Anderson Cooper, right? You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying? They come, okay, so these guys are, all of these wealthy families assign their journalist people, right? And they
Yes.
got a message out, right? So they assign Mika. Mika usually covers all these stories and brings us into the New World Order. But what I noticed about Mika lately a couple of times is, and I can like almost read it right off her face, she's thinking, wow, this is getting real. I sold out and now this is where we're headed. And she's just almost like thinking, I don't know if I should have done this. And that's the vibe I get. I don't know if that's real, but I've seen
Your
this in her
opinion.
face a couple
Yeah.
times. And because you see how Nancy Pelosi acts, you see how these other people act. Lately, this clampdown, the other time I'm talking about when Mika was talking about this was when she interviewed General O'Shaughnessy. And O'Shaughnessy was talking about how he's in continuity of government, right? And how they're going to bunker down all this stuff. Now, Pelosi gave a vague reference to President Trump not wanting to leave the White House. That was made based on what she was basically told. I mean, I'm thinking in the meeting, and I have no proof of this because I wasn't in the meeting, but they literally said, look, no elections. We're going to suspend them. Now, coincidentally, FEMA's already been activated at the highest level through the Stafford Act. It supersedes all presidential level powers right now at this point. I know that for a fact. People can believe what they want. COVID-19 is most likely being used as a cover. And Jason, governments worldwide are starting to set up and prepare and roll out their plans to preserve human life and mitigate suffering, just like in all of our Department of Defense plans. And other countries like New Zealand and even Israel are preparing for something because they too are suspending their elections and they're getting into this next timetable. It's all about this time frame and this timetable. So coming up right now, September 1st, here in a couple days, right? September 1st, 2011 ES4. 2011 ES4 is
That's the object.
passing us. No one's saying it's going to hit, but they're very worried. In fact, they said this object has a non-zero chance of impacting, which literally means it's going to impact. That's their words, not mine. I don't know what to think about it. That's September 1st. Now, literally on the September 22nd.
Wait. Doesn't non-zero just mean some statistical probability that's not zero?
No, it not really. If you really look at the terminology behind it and you look at how they list their charts, it's basically saying it's like gonna hit, and they're in a high. So that whenever they're classified like that, they're in the highest risk assessment level. To top it off, I thought that at first, Jason, and I started digging into the verbiage more in the terminology and the threat levels they have them listed at, and then I really thought about it, and it's a very thought out verbiage so it doesn't cause panic.
Right. Yeah, they've got like lawyerly ways of saying different things that maybe don't read exactly the way we think they would. I want to remind people who are watching us right now, Shepard, if they enjoy the broadcasts, and every time you come on, we get thousands of people watching these shows, I want to encourage them to visit IntelliHub.com. You can get your news there daily, and don't forget to click on the Donate tab. You can help support Shepard's reporting on IntelliHub by sending him a monetary contribution through PayPal. And it's important that we support resources like IntelliHub and Crowdsource the Truth. You know, you were talking before about Mika Brzezinski and these sort of generational families that are preserving this flow of information. You and I are kind of bucking that system, Shepard, and I've been telling people a lot lately about how the president of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences has struck the YouTube channel. It just seems so weird to me that somebody who is the CEO of a multi-million-dollar organization that is preparing for their largest once annual event, they just did the daytime Emmys, they got the sports Emmys. Nobody's playing sports because they're too busy trying to, unpresident Donald Trump. But shouldn't this guy be busy doing other stuff, not striking videos on Crowdsource the Truth? And along the lines of generational, I don't know if I've filled you in on this personally, but the president and CEO of the Academy is this guy, Adam Sharp, whose father, Roger Sharp, did extensive reporting on JFK, and in fact was the guy who, via ABC News, told the world that Lee Harvey Oswald is dead. So it's strange to me that this guy would do so much.
Connected targeting operation, honestly.
Well, I mean, what it sounds like to me is we've got a well-known newsman who's embedded in CBS and ABC right at the time that William Colby in 1975 admitted that the CIA was engaged in a project called Operation Mockingbird, where journalists were either paid or threatened, somehow coerced into telling the stories that the CIA wanted told. And just as Zbigniew Brzezinski passes certain things down to Mika Brzezinski, I wonder if Roger Sharp passes along any ideology or something to his son, where he is now a gatekeeper of information. It's interesting to see how the Emmys seem to the public like some fun celebration of the arts and sciences of television, but it actually is a mechanism of control. People like Shepard Ambellas and Jason Goodman are not being nominated for Emmys. People who talk about how great Anthony Fauci is and how terrible Donald Trump is seem to be getting nominations.
That's right. Nothing applies to us on an award level or anything, but you and I don't do it for those reasons, but that's what it's come down to. I'm sure if we were doing this kind of work and we were left-wing journalists, we would be we'd both probably have the top shows in the entire world at that point.
Maybe.
Because they just pump it out if we were all full on leftist New World Order. But see, we're exactly the opposite, so they can't have any of this. So we're highly blocked, censored. But
do you know what they actually hate, Shepard? Because think about it. Since television began, it's been a control mechanism on a lot of levels. The idea that you buy the television and the programming is free. It's paid for by corporate advertisers who are billionaires, and if they're advertising pills, they're advertising pharmaceuticals, they make so much money from the sales of these things that are promoted by these free television programs that they can then lobby our politicians to change the laws in their favor so they make even more money. What I've endeavored to do on Crowdsource the Truth with this direct-to-viewer micro-sponsorship program is to eliminate that corporate control. And we're making news, we're delivering information for the people. And the people who want that information are sponsoring the show to keep it going. So when we're not able to be controlled by this money coming from big corporate oligarchs, I think they get very upset. And you're doing essentially the same thing with reader-driven sponsorship for IntelliHub.
It is. It's so the way they'll get me, obviously, because I do advertising. I don't really ask for donations or anything unless I really need it. But so they'll try to block me any way they can. They can't get that information out, and they can't let it get out. It's just how it is. So Jason, we talked about these asteroids, but there's one This is a really weird one. Now, this is bizarre. Okay. Data from this makes me think they're gonna like pull something, but okay, whatever. I don't trust NASA on this one, but like, let's say this is real. I feel like this is some kind of setup. I mean, they're baiting us into something. Data from the National Aeronautics Space Administration shows a 6.5 foot wide asteroid named 2018 VP1. Now, they've also nicknamed that like VP1, like Biden. Will make its approach to Earth just one day before the November 3rd election, and will have a 0.41% chance of impacting the planet. However, even with that's 1 in 242 odds of impacting, and this space boulder shouldn't pose much of a risk due to its small size. But if it hit in the right place, it would do something. But for instance, what if this took out at a polling station or something? I mean, like, what? This is a day before the election. I just think that's interesting. NASA always also is saying the Earth's magnetic field is weakening. It's also splitting into two lobes, and we talked about Planet X before, and if a massive object or a planet, or they also have, this is openly admitted, supposedly, if NASA's real and all, astronomy and everything, they say that there's these rogue planets. They're free flying through the universe. So
Who
this
says
free
that?
fly,
NASA says that?
just yeah, and scientists and stuff. So if you search that, like
Rogue planets.
planets or rogue planets or something that fly through our system, you'll find it. But basically, they admit that there's a lot of these. And so whatever it is, but we know that, I went over this on your show, they've tracked this back because it went back through history, into long time history, but also into more recent history. And it's a long story, but it even gets into like FEMA and the Rex 84 and the reason they built these FEMA camps. And the reason for this, what I think is the final activation of FEMA, which is the main activation of FEMA, which they just did, which when we went in a continuity of government and we did the whole 9 yards right now. And I think that they're expecting a disaster. Now, we're also seeing the caldera in California intensify.
But sorry, real quick on the rogue planet thing, Shepard. I like to bring up CNN, even though I know our viewers aren't going to trust it. But if somebody at YouTube tries to say, oh, you don't believe in NASA or you don't believe in planets or something, we have to strike your video. I just want to let everybody know that CNN is reporting exactly what you just said. And just the other day. Wow.
Yeah. So the thing is as I'm doing this saga that we started basically on your show, Jason, in a way, because we kicked off I came on, I was ranting and raving about Planet X, and I went on Coast to Coast and some other shows, and this whole thing has become a whole subculture now. I mean, there's entire alternative media sites and YouTube assigned to this now, Jason, based on these original theories that I had and we talked about on your show, where I was relating it to the COVID and how the same people are controlling the same map. And I started looking at the military rollout and what they did worldwide. And I realized this is not compartmentalized to any one country. It's a worldwide thing, because I realized that it all goes back to more than likely this object that they discovered way back. It's all openly admitted in the press, but they've covered it up basically for years, but it is in there. And a perturber, a massive planet, maybe 4 times the size of Jupiter, maybe 100 times the size of Jupiter. I don't know. But our magnetosphere is being affected. Our sun's being affected. There's all these coronal mass ejections happening. And there's a super volcano caldera in California, Jason, that's so active right now that it's ready to go. And this thing could just wipe out California. And coincidentally, we saw that NASA asteroid drill for coming up for July 20th. And there's also an asteroid coming in around then. And then the drill, though, the fake drill, they talked about relocating the population. I also have contracts that were really, and it's not a drill, with other governments where they spent hundreds of millions of dollars to pay Argentina, Brazil, other countries to house displaced citizens in the event of a natural disaster like the eruption of the Yellowstone supervolcano. If this caldera is triggered in California, it's going to blow it up. It's also going to trigger the Yellowstone. If any of that happens, we're going to essentially go into a nuclear winter. I mean, a good portion of the United States will be instantly vaporized.
Well, but not nuclear winter. You mean it would eject so much dust and dirt into the atmosphere that it blocks out the sun and stops?
Yeah, that would create like a fake nuclear winter almost, right? Like, or something.
Photosynthesis stops, plants die, animals die, we die.
Yes, and it gets really bad. If you check into it, it's like it can like wipe out the whole planet. I mean, basically, like it could. And you got to ask, why do they got these ventilators? I got a DoD whistleblower called into my show, the Shepard Ambellas Show, which is available on Apple Podcasts, and we're nationally syndicated on iHeartRadio, and it's on YouTube. There's Monday through Friday. You can. I mean, look, they're preparing for this. Let me get into this before.
Sure.
States are secretly stockpiling food, and they're competing to fill warehouses to the brim ahead of a coming disaster. Okay. It's now been exposed by various news outlets that various U.S. states have been competing with one another to stockpile and pack full their warehouses with food in preparation for what's coming. Millions and millions of dollars have been spent by numerous states on disaster preparedness since April of this year, and it's been causing interruptions in the food chain. However, government leadership and the mainstream media would like its citizenry to feel as if they have caused the problem by clearing out the stores from panic buying. A report out of the Seattle Times titled "From Peanut Butter to Applesauce, Washington State Stockpiles Tons of Food for the Need Ahead" reveals that the state has enough peanut butter alone stockpiled away in a warehouse to make about 3 million sandwiches.
What?
And got all this stuff.
What about the jelly? Where's the jelly, Shepard?
I know.
You're going to have riots if you try to make peanut butter only sandwiches. You know how dry your mouth gets without the jelly?
Well, especially after an asteroid strike. So when you got dust in your mouth to top it off. The states are, what I learned, Jason, this is insanity. The states are competing to buy all this food. When you're seeing the store shelves being empty right now, and even before previously, that's not us. The president came out and said, don't panic buy. Half the clowns didn't panic buy and half the clowns panic bought. So it all equaled itself out. No one really panic bought. All this stuff that's disappearing off the shelves, it's being bought by the government. It's like how they're buying the ammunition up and there's no ammunition. They're putting it in
that I've heard a lot. And Shepard, right now, Hey Minnie is watching us on Periscope. Hey Minnie tells us that crunchy peanut butter is very hard to find in Southern California. I personally prefer creamy peanut butter, and I always buy the kind that doesn't have any. I just want peanuts crushed up. That's really hard to find.
Oh, like the all organic, like it's just.
Yeah, I don't want hydrogenated oil and sugar, just peanuts.
It's so hard to find.
It is. People are panic buying their. I think if you coat yourself in peanut butter, perhaps that will protect from an asteroid strike. I don't know. Sorry, I'm not trying to make fun. This is serious stuff. I mean, look, people could doubt NASA, people could doubt you, people could doubt me. The fact is, there's tons of, if I say this, we're going to get people saying that the Earth is flat. I don't personally agree with that. I have not seen evidence to support that. I think we are on a spherical planet, and there's a ton of stuff out there in space. We've looked at that image of the Nigerian meteor. I mean, what has happened? Anything around the world with more meteors? Do we know anything more from Nigeria?
I mean, they have been coming in, and I get things sent to me all the time, and it's on a regular basis. And they've also been passing at a level they don't even discover them until they pass. But this whistleblower named Becca called into my show. She works for the Department of the Interior,
Right.
and she said that she got this DoD internal memo, and it said that climate change is a threat to its operations and infrastructure. She said this is her saying this, but in my voice. She says, "This I thought was really interesting. It came from DoD internal. It says that the DoD has designed or designated climate change as a threat to operations and installations. So it's buildings, and it's partly due to, unquote, its damaging effects on infrastructure. But here is the thing, which could delay critical supplies or IT services. We are not just talking about power lines and such, but buildings." I thought it was strange. She said, so they came out in this memo and they said, look, climate change it could cause delay, and it could cause damage to infrastructure. And it sounds like abrupt climate change. And she said that they're assessing the risks related to climate change and extreme weather in regards to making sure that specific companies, those are providing components to weapon systems, are supplied.
Whoa.
And, she also called in before and had told us that the Department of the Interior is basically shutting down, and she feels like all these agencies are shutting down. And I found out all these paychecks are now coming from FEMA. Like FEMA's in control of everything. Like people,
whose paychecks are coming from
all
FEMA?
sorts of checks coming from FEMA now. That, I mean, it's like really bizarre. We probably need to check into it even more. So she said that in the DoD, they came out and they got this emergency alert system going right away. And it's
Right.
like they're rushing to do it, and they got it put in place, and it's really bizarre, and it's really redundant, and it's very intense how it works. So it just seems like everything is she even basically made it sound like, look, they look like they're shutting everything down. No one's went back to work. They know something's coming, kind of vibe. And, this, has got me questioning this stuff. And then there's, it goes on and on, but all of this is playing with people's minds. It's causing them to do crazy stuff, Jason.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about as well, because we were speaking about, you brought up that term, the perturber, and CNN confirms that NASA says there's these rogue planets. We went through it all with John Cullen about how Planet X is not the name derived from some 1950s B science fiction film, but rather it was named that when Pluto was the 9th planet, or considered by scientists to be the 9th planet. This was the 10th planet, X being the Roman numeral for 10. We went through all of those details, but the notion that some distant planet coming close to the Earth, magnetic fields, all space weather, all this stuff could interact. I mean, that kind of makes a lot of sense. We know that the sun has these coronal mass ejections. I mean, listen, you can feel the energy of the sun for yourself. You go outside on a hot day, you get sunburned. So obviously there is energy coming from the sun to the earth. And that's just one of the ways. I mean, you can see things because of the light from the sun, plants grow, we feel it on our skin. So obviously it's doing something, and it just begs the question, if there are planets, asteroids, other celestial bodies that are going to interact with the Earth in that kind of outer space way, can that have an impact on humans, electromagnetic radiation? Or frankly, if people doubt that, what about just the fact that there's news articles about it, and the knowledge that this could happen might make people apprehensive? What do you think, Shepard? Are these celestial bodies affecting people's behavior here on Earth?
Well, right. It does. It's basically proven there's space weather does affect human health. And, everything has energy in it. You were talking about the sun. We're all composed of atoms, and they have these HARP programs and everything, and then there's these like harpies, and they talk about how people can go around and just like harp it up and make people violent. And
Well, wait a minute.
probably
We got to tell people who haven't heard about the HARP what that is.
okay. So it's it's up in
High
Alaska, and it's this
altitude
big.
atmospheric research program, right?
Yeah, something like that. And it's a big antenna array, and they can do a variety of things with it, but I think they can like change your behavior with it and stuff like that. But they can do things all the way up to like nuclear size explosions in the atmosphere.
How does it do that? I mean, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's an array of extremely powerful radio telescopes arranged in a pattern like this that are intended to use a wide range of frequencies to excite the ionosphere in various ways. And it's a research program. They don't even necessarily know what this is going to do.
Supposedly.
Right.
If you've interviewed a lot of top experts on it, or talked to people, more and more information comes out on it. But none of this is really out of the question. There is a patent for brainwave and reading and altering technology by Robert G. Malik. And I'll try to pull up the patent number. And
like Moloch?
Yeah, so let me pull this up.
I think I have it.
There is a on IntelliHub.
I've got it here.
Oh no, it's
Isn't this it? This is a apparatus and method for remotely monitoring and altering brainwave. Plainview. This guy's in Plainview inventing brain monitoring technology.
Inventor. Its current assignee is Dorn and Margolin Incorporated, and its U.S. patent number 3951134A, and they can remotely monitor and alter your brainwaves. So anyone that thinks targeting is not possible, and anyone that thinks that
from 1976. Wow.
Yeah,
Let's just read the abstract for a second here. It says that
since then.
Hang on, Shepard. Let's read this. Apparatus for and method of sensing brain waves at a position remote from the subject, whereby electromagnetic signals of different frequencies are simultaneously transmitted to the brain of the subject, in which these signals interfere with one another to yield a waveform which is modulated by the subject's brain waves. The interference waveform, which is representative of the brainwave activity, is retransmitted by the brain to a receiver where it is demodulated and amplified. The demodulated waveform is then displayed for visual viewing and routed to a computer for further processing and analysis. This is bizarre. So this patent was granted. Wow.
Yeah, they're using this technology daily. They have something called the Voice of God weapon. They had they first tested this on a large scale during the first, what was it, Desert Storm War. Yeah. If you remember, they had all the Iraqis lined up on the sand dunes in a line, surrendering, holding white flags up. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've seen pictures of that. They were
I've
waving.
seen a bunch of stuff. We've heard about these active denial systems. I mean, I understood that it was primarily using microwave technology to just shoot energy at people and heat them up.
So that's directed and stuff like that in microwave technology. Yeah. It would be actually voice of God. So, for instance, in the Desert Storm, the rumor is, and they probably did this, is they just basically said, "Look, guys, this is Allah," and they said this in their language. Surrender. It's over. And they did, and then they just waved white flags, and that was that.
I love the idea that they say, "Look, guys, this is Allah. What's up?" But I mean, Shepard, this is, people who want to say that you and I are discussing conspiracy theories or that this is nonsense. I mean, I don't know. You and I have known each other for a couple of years. Do you control the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, Shepard? I don't think you do.
I wish. Probably a
Yeah,
lot
you
of
didn't
money.
issue that patent. Somebody else gave that dude the patent, and it was issued. I mean, I've tried to patent certain things where they tell you, no, this is not novel, or you can't demonstrate that it works. So, obviously there's got to be something to this, or the USPTO wouldn't be giving the guy a patent. He's got all the diagrams and necessary stuff that's in there to illustrate the function of it. I mean, people can go through and read this thing, apparatus and method for remotely monitoring and altering brainwaves. I mean, this is basically like reprogramming your brain.
Well, a guy can just drive by in a truck basically and point it at you, and they can project fear into you. They could,
Wow.
it can be anything. But basically, these operatives probably walk around. They probably got little guns now, and they carry it out.
That's amazing. We've got to learn more about this, Shepard. It's
Yeah, this company, I was thinking about this the other day because I got into this the other day, and I said, you know what? I didn't really get into this when I initially got into it. It says current assignee, Dorm
Yeah.
and Margolian. We should probably really check into this.
They're in Bohemia. They're on Long Island. Well,
Might
but
be
this
a
is
good-
from 1976. I wonder, let's look it up and see if that company is still around. Dorn and Margolin. SBIR.gov. I don't know what this is. I love it when we do this sort of interactive investigation. Yeah, it looks like they're still in Bohemia. Whoa, 2 employees? What's that about?
The two that hold the patent.
Multi-octave passive VHF, UHF, monopole antenna.
Hey, can we buy that? I want to buy that. What is
But
that?
what is it? How do we even know? I mean, that could be like a giant thing.
Antifa. We could tell.
No,
We could tell
don't.
the Antifa men that they're actually real men.
No, we don't want to. We don't want to get involved with that. Let's just real quick take a look on Google Earth, because Bohemia. Yeah, I mean that's like an area of Long. I think I've been there. It's kind of.
You just go buy one of these off the shelf and take it to an Antifa protest and harp it up.
How do we know how to program the brain, though? That seems like a
Experiment. That's what they do.
I mean, I don't even know how to deal with Java. Okay, here's the place. Looks like an industrial park of some kind. I mean, this is where brainwave control is happening. Look at this, Shepard. We got some big trucks parked here in the parking lot. What do we think about this place?
It looks shady.
Well, it just looks kind of like an industrial park, but I don't know. This is something we're going to have to look into further. Let me just try searching for the company again one more time.
Hey, when you go over there, if you go over there and you see guys walking around with little radar dishes to their vehicles and then they drive off, then you know we got problems.
Yeah. So maybe it's just Dorn and Margolin are the only 2 people in the company, and they're busy controlling people's brainwaves.
Yes, I believe that. Now there's
Oh,
this
the
thing-
antenna is $1,475. Look, here you go. You can buy it. But
I got.
how do
we
we even
gotta
know
play
what this? That's a lot for an antenna.
Yeah, but I'll just like aim it at things and see what happens.
I don't think we should do that. Something about aircraft. Difficult to find information on this company. They do have a lot of patents. Aircraft antennas is what they're making. Dorn and Margolin. Interesting. Well, Shepard, we're almost out of time.
Do they fly over and harp it up? I mean, like, what are they using this on? Who's buying this stuff?
I mean, the fact that they've got a technology that can control people's brains that seems like something we should know more about. Now, I don't know, what is this EDO Corporation?
Professor Robert Knight and his crew at UC Berkeley are now trying to take the technology all the way. And they want to develop an implantable device that decodes the signals that occur in the brain when we think of a word, then turn the signals into a sound file that can be reproduced by a speech device. So they might just be when they talked about logging every keystroke on your computer in the
Yeah.
X keylogger
Log every
program.
thought.
Yeah, they're logging every thought now, probably.
Well, I don't want to jump to that conclusion, but it is interesting. So
No, I'm
EDO
of it, but I
Corporation
mean,
has
it's like the level
purchased
we're
this
at.
thing.
Yeah,
Oh, and then they got acquired by Harris. Huh. Harris is a big company.
that's right. This company's come up before. Oh,
And they
L3.
merged with L3. So
Ooh.
now L3 has this brain controlling technology. Wow. I don't know, Shepard. I got to tell you, I've spoken about this a bit before, but a lot of people have experienced this where if I tell you, Shepard, I think I need some new Adidas, I'm going to start getting lots of ads for sneakers.
Yeah,
And that's because the microphone here, on the phone, on the computer, it's listening, and
I took that
Amazon's
one
going to send the
further.
ads.
It goes further. Yeah, the camera.
Well, what if
This I
that antenna is tracking your brain waves and giving you things that you just think about?
Yeah, and it probably doesn't. It's probably hooked to every computer or something. But one thing that I did, and I thought it was, I was assuming it was the camera and not what it hurt, because I always heard, it can hear you. Well, I had a Dr. Pepper in my hand, never said anything about Dr. Pepper, and I was like in front of a camera, maybe doing a show or something, drinking a Dr. Pepper, and then all these Dr. Pepper ads and I've never seen a Dr. Pepper ad in my life, and then they started popping up, and so it's
Wow.
either reading my thought or the camera's looking at you the whole time.
Well, Dave Cohen tells us they know very little about the brain. I agree with that, but there's plenty of stuff that they mess around with that they know very little about. But Shepard, we're just about out of time. I want to remind people to visit IntelliHub.com. They can stay abreast of all this type of information and more. You've got a lot of reporting about the Wisconsin shooting.
There, Jason. I forgot. Yeah, just if they're interested in that, we have a whole breakdown on it.
Yeah, and you and I are going to be appearing on the Shepard Ambellas podcast later today, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about other things. I do want to remind people to tap on the donate tab when they visit IntelliHub.com and financially support Shepard so that we can continue to do this kind of broadcasting and look into these phenomenon that frankly are not really on the radar of the mainstream news. This is bizarre stuff, Shepard, but I love it when we dig in there and find the evidence that it's actually happening. Any closing words before we say goodbye to everybody?
No, just hopefully your audience tunes in when you come on my show, 5 p.m. Eastern, today on the Shepard Ambellas YouTube channel, and they can check it out. We're going to talk about your issues and also some of this Kenosha shooting and all about that. So,
And
I appreciate all the listeners and your great audience, Jason, and what you do as well.
Thanks very much, Shepard. We'll speak with you in just a little bit. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget to support this program. You can go to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. It's really important that people do that. The Television Academy is trying to shut down Crowdsource the Truth. It can't live stream until after the election. I think that there's a motive behind that, so hopefully people will stay with us, join us on Subscribestar and Patreon. Shepard, I'll speak with you in just a bit, and thanks for a great report.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. See you later.